Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
Hey, if you're a Californian looking to move out of state, we have testimonials from former Californians who've moved to many different states, including Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Montana, Wyoming, and so many more. Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next state that we preview.
You can go to the grocery store, you're going to have a conversation with somebody. Like somebody's going to have a conversation with you, I guess is the way I should put it. I lived in Sacramento for a year right out of college, and it was like culture shock to me because walking by people in the grocery store, I'd be like, hey, how you doing? You know, how's it going? And people would stare at me like I'm crazy. Like you don't make eye contact. You certainly don't ask how you're doing. And that's like normal here. I'll tell you what the worst part. There's two things that you'll hear. First is smoke. I actually made a video on my channel about that, and I dove into the data because I was genuinely curious all the time. You smoke. It's terrible. And it's not the worst we've ever seen in the last 10 years, I think, of the data that I saw. There was like 14 or 15 days in a row of unhealthy air quality, according to the EPA. So that's one of the things you'll hear people talk about is the smoke. The second thing is
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jones Zone. Today, we've got Brian Simmons from Oregon, California. He's going to be part of this series that I'm doing about Californians who are moving out of California to different states, which is a huge, huge thing nowadays. So he's going to be representing the great state of Oregon for us. And he's oddly enough, he's where my uncle moved to around 40 years ago. And my nephew still lives and my aunt still lives, which is near Medford, Oregon, right, Brian? And, you know, tell us a little bit where your market is.
Yeah, so we are here in Southern Oregon. Jackson and Josephine counties is what we typically refer to as Southern Oregon. And that's basically the area between Ashland to Grants Pass. That's kind of the main hub. It's about a population of about 300,000 people in the area, and so not a terribly large area, but in terms of population, but pretty large in terms of size. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff happening up here.
Well, it's beautiful. I've been going to your neck of the woods for decades because of my uncle. Meaning, I've gone camping there, four-wheeling, shooting, hunting. I don't really hunt very much, but I've been hunting once, and that's where it was. And then, but I can say this: it's just absolutely beautiful. It's one of those areas where they're in Medford, and which is, I think, right where you said. And it's just so cool to be you're kind of like in the city, but in the woods. It's a great place to be. So, all right, well, let's dive in. You used to live in California yourself, but only when you're a little kid. But you have a lot of experience with California, right?
I was born down there in Van Nuys and have family still down there, Burbank area. My grandparents lived in San Clemente. Anyways, yeah, I've been down there many times and very familiar with the area. And we moved away from there when I was pretty little. I was 4 or 5 years old. So I've spent a lot of my life up here in Southern Oregon, and a few years, 4 years in Eugene, going to college.
Let's dive right into some comparisons on property. So I just sold a few houses. I'll think of one. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,600 square foot, 60 years old for $1,050,000. What would a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,600 square foot house in your market cost?
So 3-bedroom, 1,600 square foot. You could get brand new construction for probably 450, 450, 500. And of course, depending on the area, right? Like they exist here for in that 450 range and sometimes even less as brand new construction. If you get into some of the like nicer, more high-end neighborhoods, that same house can get into the 6s and 7s and stuff like that. But
nicer neighborhoods, meaning not only that, but don't you have some view properties and golf courses there? And lakes and stuff like that.
View properties, golf courses, all the above. Not a lot of like lakes and stuff. We have a river that goes through here, the Rogue River, and so we've got riverfront property and those sorts of things as well. But yeah, I mean the typical 3-bed, 2-bath home like that, you know, you're looking at around 450, which is the median home price here in Southern Oregon, right about 450,000.
And do you have a lot of new build right now happening there?
So yes, but not a lot for us, I would say. But being a smaller market like we are, we don't really attract the big, large builders. Like D.R. Horton is the only big builder that's come here, and they are building a very small development here, which is not many homes. So
like how many? What's that? 100 or 500?
I think they've
approximately
50 or something like that. But I think they have a development coming up that's going to be a couple hundred or so. But it'll be in phases. and they're not just going to flood the market with 300 new homes or something. So we do have other like more local and regional builders that do, do their own jobs and stuff like that, but they're not at anywhere near the scale of what you would see a D.R. Horton or a Lennar or somebody like that doing out, in areas like around Southern California or Vegas or Phoenix or whatever, where they're just blowing out these huge subdivisions with 1,000 homes and stuff. We're not seeing anything like that here, and that works to our benefit, really, because we have people relocating into our market, and so our demand is nice and strong, and the supply, though, just really can't keep up. So it's a great thing for home values.
Oh, so you have, is it more of a seller's market? Because that's how it is here, even though it's funny. I network with a lot of agents throughout the entire country, and I was surprised to hear about how much of a down market it is, more of a buyer's market in most areas. And I was thinking, well, gosh, in Orange County, California, it's a little softer, but it's still a seller's market. So it's still a seller's market in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, we have just under 4 months of inventory still. And so I think, by NAR's definition, a balanced market is 6 months. And so we're at 4, and that's about 1,500 homes on the market between the two counties. If you look at, when things were, really, really a seller's market, we had the lowest I remember ever seeing was about 300 homes on the market. And again, that's a population of 300,000 people. And we had only 300 homes. That was back in 21, I think, maybe. But anyways, yeah, good, strong market. And then we're looking at 1,500 homes on the market. We're like, God, this is great. Like we actually we have options, right? We have, we can go out and see homes, and it's like, gosh, there's 5 that we can pick right now in this one neighborhood. And that's been rare for us. So
tell us about that. What kind of ranges you mentioned? If you, for example, I was giving you a stereotypical 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,600 square foot house. What's your most expensive house? Let's put it that way. I mean, I know ours in Orange County. I looked it up the other day. I think it was 32 million for a beach property. I mean, obviously, that's extremely rare to have in any state. But what do you have? $5 million properties, $2 million properties?
So there's 2 homes off the top of my head in Southern Oregon that are on the market for like 8.5 million. Those are very like extremely, outliers, right? Like there's the next closest homes are probably 4 or 5 million. And there's probably a handful of those. And then there's a lot of homes in that, 1 to 2 million range. And it's kind of like, the traditional bell curve, like lots of homes in the million range, not as many in the 2 million, and on you go, right? But a lot of, folks that are relocating here from Southern Oregon or Southern California, for example, they're able to come here and look at homes that are, 6 to 800. And they're like, gosh, this is nicer than the house I just left that I sold for, 2 million or something. And they're able to come up here and pay cash and level up into a nicer home.
And it's a beautiful place. A lot of people's fear when they hear Oregon and Washington is rain and climate. But your climate, at least when I've been there, of course, I've been cherry picking the times that I go, is pretty darn mellow. Tell us about your rain, your heat. Yeah. How's that look like throughout the year?
Sure. So that's one of the things that comes with being in the like kind of forgotten part of the state. Everybody you talk to somebody else, on the East Coast, for example, about, hey, we're in Oregon, and they're like, oh, I have a friend in Portland you might know. Like I don't know. I mean, so everybody thinks that like Portland is literally like the only part of Oregon, and so that's where we get the reputation of rain. Like there's
but there's not much rain where you're at.
No, we have 200 days of sunshine a year. I think we average like 20 inches of rain or something like that. Not bad at all. So it's great, year-round climate. We're much more of a Mediterranean climate. So for California, comparison, think of like Sacramento, climate-wise, like we're similar to that. Probably not quite as hot as they get.
Yeah, I was going to say your extremes are. It does snow a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah. We'll get a couple inches of snow a year. Maybe 2 or 3 days where it snows, but it's typically melted off within, another day. So it's very rare to get it accumulating, for where it sticks around for more than a day or so.
That's why my uncle had moved up there 40 some years ago. In fact, it was funny because even back then they said you have to remove your California license plate when you move in. That's probably a little bit less important nowadays with so many Californians moving up there already.
Yeah, I mean, 7 out of 10 people you talk to are from California, and even the people that claim that they're, natives, they were from California probably early on. They've been here 20 years or something, so they don't remember those days. But So many people are from California. It's just, people.
Is that your biggest probably intake of other
Yeah.
states?
Yeah. A lot of folks from Southern California, a lot of folks from the Bay Area. Those are definitely like the two biggest hubs. But in addition, Phoenix, Arizona area, Vegas, we get a lot of folks from there too. But those are kind of the main ones. And what we see with those is the folks that have left Southern California, they've tried out Phoenix or Vegas, for example, realize it's way too hot in the summer, and they're like, okay, let's try something else. We still want to be on the West Coast, but we want better, not as extreme weather and that type of stuff. And so we get a lot of those folks making their second move.
I'm not surprised because I've had clients that have gone to Arizona. It's not for everybody. And Oregon, like I said, every time I've been up there, it's just been beautiful. Now, tell us about. I mentioned before rivers. You said the Rogue River's there, and you're right in the woods and stuff. What can a person expect to be able to do for hobbies and things like that? Because hunting's a big deal, right? Fishing, camping, biking, or trail hiking.
Yep, almost endless. I mean, there's anything that you can think of outdoors, you can pretty much do here. So rafting, kayaking, boating, on the rivers, you can fish, you can hunt, camping. There's a lot of great golf courses. There's great mountain biking, like incredible single track trails around here. There's like rock climbing. There's road biking. There's all sorts of running trails. Like there's just it's really like endless. I mean, there's so many things that you can do here. It's one of the
And
big
most
draws.
And you actually, I was talking earlier about newer homes, but you also have, I'm sorry, this just occurred to me because I was up there for Christmas time. You have some great old homes. I mean, things that are like 100 plus years old that are just gorgeous.
Yeah, well, there are, the area here was founded when Jacksonville is a small town where it all started in the 1850s, and so it was actually one of the largest cities in Oregon in the late 1800s, before kind of Northern Oregon really started going. So there was quite a few homes that were, of that era, the late 1800s, early 1900s, that people came in and built these like big, beautiful homes. And there's several of them that have been, well taken care of and or renovated and restored and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of beautiful homes like that in Ashland and Jacksonville, for example. Yeah, all sorts.
And you can get pretty, you get a lot of land too if one wanted, meaning,
Yeah.
I think my nephew has, or my uncle, that's now my nephew's, is gosh, a half acre, and it's just like a normal house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not uncommon, especially on like the outskirts of town. If you wanted a half an acre or an acre, maybe you want to have a little garden or some room for the dog to run around or something like that. Yeah, it's very common to be able to find that. And then stuff all the way out to, a couple hundred acres or 1,000 acres, those exist too. Obviously further out of town, but
Yeah, because you have is there farms? Well, there is a farm there because I know of a particular smell I got when I'd gone from the airport to his house once. I told my uncle, or excuse me, my cousin. I said, "What? God, did you hit a skunk? Did you hit a skunk?" He goes, "No." And I go, "What are you talking about?" So there's a processing plant there. That was quite the aroma.
Yeah, and thankfully a lot of that has gone downhill. That market has tanked. The prices of their product and stuff like that has gone so far downhill that it put a
We're
lot of
talking
them.
about cannabis, everybody.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And so the prices have went downhill. They basically like did it to themselves. That they flooded the market with so much inventory that they essentially like drove themselves all out. So there's only a few people left. So the moral of that story is that those smells that used to be so much more intense when every single, almost every single property somebody was growing, and in the harvest season it was like, geez, you couldn't get away from it. Now, thankfully, like it's very like few and far between.
How's your property taxes work? I mean, California, it's, tell us about your property taxes. What are they? How's that work?
I will, and insurance is the other one that people ask
Yeah.
about a lot. So I think that's good for folks from California to talk about those, because our property taxes are different than California's, for example, where you guys are used to having like you sell your house, and then now that sales price becomes the new baseline for the taxes, right? And so that's not how it is in Oregon. It's based on the assessor's value. So the county assessor comes up with a value of your home, and that it could be way off from what the market value actually is, and it's totally irrelevant. It's just a basis for taxation, and then they assess with the taxes from whatever your district or whatever. maybe there's a school levy and that's X amount of cents per
Well, like
thousand.
ours is like around 1.1%. What is it? What's yours?
It's somewhere
Approximately.
in there. So like one of those, let's use that same example, the median home price, 450,000, you're probably looking around maybe, depending on exactly where you're at, probably around 3,000 a year in taxes. Go up or down depending on where, but as you go rural and you get out of the city, and you have that half acre lot that you were talking about, your taxes for that half acre lot could be $2,500. And stuff like that. So it just varies depending on the location, but overall generally significantly cheaper than comparable properties in California.
And then you mentioned the key, that's a big word in California right now, is insurance. Yeah. Our
Yeah.
insurance is getting a little bonkers.
Yeah.
I don't even get into a personal story about a property that I have, but tell us about the insurance. Fires, tell us.
Yeah. So we hear that's probably the most frequently asked question I get is, well, tell me about fire insurance. Well, the long and short of it is that we don't have it. Fire insurance is part of your homeowner's insurance here, and so it's really more about will your home qualify for homeowners insurance? And the only types of properties that I've ever seen have any sort of issue are the homes that are very rural and they're more than 10 miles away from a fire station. And so if you get into, something you're looking for those big, huge properties and you're way out in the boonies, yeah, you might have a challenge. But even in those cases, there's still options. And the insurance providers might just say, hey, look, we want some of these trees to be cut or some more defensible space or something like that. But yeah, it's generally speaking, homeowners insurance in Oregon is pretty cheap. From what I've seen online, it's actually one of the cheapest states in the country to get insurance in. I know, it's hard to give you like an example, but on that same type of house, 3-bed, 2-bath home in town, you're probably around the $2,000 a year range, something like that, 2,000, 2,500, something like that from what I've seen.
And then what about this? Because another time, we were talking about oftentimes people retiring and moving away. How is the medical industry going there? How's the doctor accessibility, those types of things?
So our medical's actually very strong here in Southern Oregon. We have the Rogue Regional Medical Center, and Asante is the healthcare group, and they've been rated one of the top 15 health systems in the country for like the last 10 years in a row. So a lot of good medical there. In terms of accessibility, I think I've heard different things, right? I know like my own experience of trying to find a doctor was super easy. I've made a couple calls and got a doctor. But I know, where I hear of issues is sometimes like some of the specialists, if you have like a non-critical issue and you were required to see a certain specialist about it, I've heard of those types of scenarios taking some time. Maybe it's a month or 6 weeks or something before you can get in to see somebody. And I've seen that happen a few times. And so, it's not great for that, but we also do have options that, you can go to Portland, and that's a 4-hour drive. And there's tons of different specialists and OHSU up there. And that's an option as well. So we, see people sometimes doing that.
What schools are near you? Any universities?
Locally with Southern Oregon University. And it's just a small liberal arts school in Ashland. We have Rogue Community College, which has campuses in Medford and Grants Pass. And other than that, in terms of the collegiate stuff, it's basically it. Other than Oregon Institute of Technologies in Klamath Falls, and then we have University of Oregon and Oregon State University up north.
Tell me, what's your favorite thing about Oregon? What's the best thing about Oregon as far as you're concerned?
I think that it's just the balance, honestly. Like it's all of those things, like to be able to have like the good climate, to be able to have the value and the low cost of living, the all the outdoor recreational activities and all that kind of stuff. But really, like the thing that's so hard for people, I think, to understand that haven't experienced it is just the people. The people, like you can go into the grocery store and like you're gonna have a conversation with somebody. Like somebody's going to have a conversation with you, I guess is the way I should put it. If you're in line, and it's not like I lived in Sacramento for a year right out of college, and it was like culture shock to me because walking by people in the grocery store, I'd be like, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going?" Like and people would stare at me like I'm crazy. And it's like you don't make eye contact. You certainly don't ask how you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's like normal here. That's how people are. They want to be a good neighbor, to be a good community member. It's kind of like the old days, I guess. Where it's just much more friendly. Everybody kind of does their own thing in terms of like Nobody gets like overly like political and stuff like that. Small town feel. And that's what I really love.
One thing that did interest me, you mentioned about grocery stores and shopping and stuff. Notice there's no sales tax there, huh?
No sales tax.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. I bought some pants and some stuff, and oh wow, oh no tax. And another thing too is you guys have to, when you go to get gas, you have an attendant that fills up the car, correct?
We did. That changed.
Oh, it did.
You did, yes. So last year that changed. That was one of the laws that had passed or whatever. So now you can pump your own gas. But what you see at the gas stations here is there's basically two sides. This side you can pump your own gas, and this side you have an attendant. And it doesn't cost anything more to have it pumped by the attendant.
Do you have any pests there? I mean, how's the mosquitoes? Do you have bears? Do you have? It's funny. I was doing one in South Carolina, and they were talking about alligator problem. I think, oh yeah, there was an alligator across the street. An alligator, and then I've heard about bugs. I think it was North Carolina. But anyway, how's that look there?
Not really anything that I can think of. No, mosquitoes are not a problem. I mean, we have mosquitoes every now and then, but it's not, not like Alaska or anything. You can go up to the high mountains and stuff like that. You go up to some of the lakes up there, and it gets bad up there. But here in the valley, it's not. Mosquitoes are not a problem at all. Otherwise, I mean, do we have bears and stuff? Sure, yeah. Like we have woods around us. We have bears. I can count on one hand how many I've ever even seen. And mountain lions and stuff like that. I've never even seen one. I'm a hunter. I'm an outdoorsman. It's so hard to see them. It's like they're not a threat or anything.
Yeah, you wish you saw them.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would love to see one. But there's common sense things that you need to be aware of with that. It's like if you have a small dog, for example, and you live in the country, like you probably don't want to leave your dog outside for an extended period of time, especially at night, and those sorts of things. But otherwise, there's not a threat to people like hiking and stuff like that I've ever heard of.
How far are you from the ocean to give people a kind of a balance? You're like an hour and a half?
It's
the coast?
Well, like Grants Pass to Brookings, let's say, or Crescent City is about 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay.
About a 2 hour drive from Grants Pass. So from Medford, 2.5. From Ashland, maybe closer to 3.
Not that the oceans in Oregon are necessarily like California. You're not going there for oceans.
No, you're basically, the way I get a lot of people like, well, what about looking over at the coast? I'm like, oh, I hope you like rain because it is gray and rainy all the time. So a lot of people just go over there and spend a weekend and get some, good clam chowder and fish and chips and come back home.
Yeah, but not in Medford. Medford, it's not gray and rainy typically.
Oh,
all right.
No, it's beautiful weather here. Yeah.
And what about utilities? How's utilities? How's your electric, your water bill, gas, trash, all that? Anything crazy?
Nothing crazy. The power and stuff, it's hard for me to really have a comparison because I've lived here forever. But I think it's pretty affordable. City services, water, those sorts of things. I live on a property that has a well and a septic, so I don't pay any of those things. And that's something I think a lot of folks misunderstand, especially that come from an area that's like yours down in Southern California, is they don't understand wells and septics. And they're like, I don't want a property that has either of those. And it's like they're actually very, good systems that are very cheap to maintain and stuff. But in terms of the prices of those things, like from all the research I've done in comparison to other areas, they're like right on par with everything else, like with every other area for the most part.
Yeah, I did Florida. I just did Florida, a gentleman in Florida, and he moved from California to Florida, and he said his electric bill's 1/8 of what it was in California. Oh, on that note, do you have solar? Is there much solar there?
Not as much, no. It exists and you'll see homes with it, but it's not as big of a value add or anything here like it is in other areas.
How's the culture there in Oregon?
So that's one thing that I think is kind of a little bit of a secret here, is that people don't really realize that like we have actually a very thriving arts community and stuff like that here. So like with Ashland, for example, Ashland was ranked by USA Today as one of the top 10 small arts towns in the entire country. And so that's kind of anchored by the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which is a really like world-class Shakespeare festival. There's the Brit Festival in Jacksonville, which is an outdoor concert series, which is amazing. And there's all sorts of like the small art galleries and stuff that are all over the place. And so it really is like a big, culture of the arts here in Southern Oregon that is really interesting because it's such a kind of opposite of the kind of rural like type of person that you would think lives here. And so it's funny to see, you know, we have a bunch of like the rednecks here that are the hunters and the fishermen and all that. And then we have a lot of people that are also like the kind of more refined, like I want to go to the vineyard and I want to go to the art gallery and I want to go to the play and watch a Shakespeare play. And so we really have like a great mix of people here. And that's why I tell people like there's something for everyone here. Like if you're into those plays, like we have those. You want to go see a concert, we have that. You want to go for a big hike and do those sorts of things, we have that too. And so
Yeah.
it's an area that really, you know, I've sold homes to so many different types of people that have just completely fallen in love with this place, and for good reason. And the culture is one of them.
No, I can attest to it. Like I said, I've been there too. It's a great place. I was thinking of asking you one kind of final question, which is, what's the worst part of Oregon? And I really can't think of one. I guess the airport's not huge, but that could be a positive, frankly.
Oh yeah, that's a positive for sure. Because my flight leaves at 8 a.m. I'm pulling into the airport at 7, and
Yeah.
so that's positive. And there's two people in line in front of me in the TSA pre-check. But I'll tell you what the worst part is. There's two things that you'll hear if you start researching Southern Oregon. There's two things, right? First is smoke, and I actually made a video on my channel about that, and I dove into the data because I was genuinely curious because I was like, you hear all about this all the time. The smoke is terrible, and it's not. The worst we've ever seen in the last 10 years, I think, in the data that I saw, there was like 14 or 15 days in a row of unhealthy air quality, according to the EPA. Okay, that's it. That's the worst that we ever saw. This year, I think we had maybe like 3 days of unhealthy air quality, maybe not even that. It was a very, very light year. The second thing is you'll hear people talk about the homeless. And that's something that, what I always tell people is like, if you think that Southern Oregon has a homeless problem, you need to go visit Southern California, San Francisco, Portland,
Oh,
Seattle, Salem, any of the other big cities
Santa
on the West
Barbara. Yeah.
Coast. You'll see what a real homeless problem looks like. People that say that here are the folks who've lived here for 50 years, and they're like, oh my gosh, like there's more than one homeless person in this town now, and what is going on? it's just keep in mind perspective is
Right.
what I
Right. No, that
but
makes
those
sense.
are the things you'll hear if you do your research on Southern Oregon. That's what you'll hear.
Well, if somebody did want to do more research on Southern Oregon and get a hold of you and check it out, what's the best way to reach you?
Check out our YouTube channel. It's Buying Southern Oregon. That's a great place to start. And then, of course, you can always reach out to me directly. My email is Brian, Brian, at buyingsouthernoregon.com. You can call or text me, 541-954-7758. It's my direct number. Reach out. I'm more than happy to help people. That's my passion, is to help people learn and discover this beautiful part of the state. So,
It is a great part. And Buying Southern Oregon, that's a pretty spot on. It's funny. I had a client. I said, okay, what's your email? You always have to get the client's email.
Yeah.
He said, oh, it's Bob the Pool Man. I said, I didn't know you did pools. He said, no, I don't. But Bob the Pool Man, such an easy email to remember. So that's my email. So you can't forget your web address. And so anybody has a chance, call Brian about Oregon. I can tell you right now that Medford, the area that I call it Medford. I know that's the smaller city in your hub, but
Medford's the biggest.
Oh,
Medford's
it is
the biggest city in Southern Oregon. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
90,000 people. Yeah.
It's just stunning. It's gorgeous. I've always loved it. We go there every December, and just call Brian and check it out. And if you have any questions, contact him. He's your man in Oregon. So thank you.
I appreciate it. And come by the office next time you're in town.
I will. I hope to see you soon. And thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe for more.